kid ride. Rise of the Resistance, right, Nye? So we're at Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, and the narrative is, of course, that there is an evil empire that has been exploitive, extractive, has been taking resources and enslaving people and causing misery to people, bombing people indiscriminately, fantasy things that you would never find in real life. And so we're here to fantasize that there's a solution, that people will rise up in resistance against the empire. And it's beautifully themed here at the Disney park. But what I find else interesting is that this entire Star Wars world is what the Middle East looked like before the Western empires colonized it and brought their brutalist architecture and other brutal policies to it. So we're actually walking through a simulacrum of what back to Syria, particularly Citadel, to the old cities in Nablus and parts of Palestine, Bethlehem, Jerusalem, Beit Sahur, parts of Tunisia that I've been to, and parts of Morocco, into the old souks. And so really we're walking through an imagineered version of what the uncolonized Middle East looked like and felt like, the big spice markets. I'm very much looking forward to working in the Mellah, which is the old Jewish quarter of Marrakesh, and visiting it in November when I go to speak at the Urban Health Conference. Our urban health is ailing, and it's because of a lack of imagination and a focus on money as the final object rather than the means to obtain a better life. And here in this ironically overpriced theme park, there has been some investment in great Imagineering, so great architecture that mines, that's a bad word to use, isn't it, harvests from the past and really brings to light for a contemporary audience that lives in an exploitive economy that purports to be democratic, that purports to be free, that purports to fight against the empire, going back to our 4th of July celebration of independence from the British Empire. We purport these values, and Rise of the Resistance is a cultural exploration that for some reason the vast audiences here in Florida don't take to heart, to see that we're living in a time when the empire is causing incredible immiseration, that the empire is using all of the military-industrial tools befit of a Darth Maul, Darth Vader, and Emperor Palpatine reality to visit fear and terror and causing a fight between we the people who live on the margins of this extractive, exploitive system. So our son here, who's 4, is getting a chance to embed in his consciousness the imagined landscapes and struggles of people from a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away that he obviously can see speaks to his contemporary situation as a son of a Palestinian American with a father who was an Iraqi, Irish, Lebanese, French, German, Spanish American, that we are all here in this wonderful country of America as not just a melting pot, but a potpourri of opportunity if we truly live with governance of the people, by the people, for the people. And those are the values that little Nye is going to be internalizing, because I'm a proud American patriot from an recent immigrant family and a very old immigrant family. The Ribidoux family came from France via Montreal, and then down the Mississippi River in the 1700s. We have Irish immigrants who go back in my line to the 1800s, being now a name for Native American families. So we know about resistance. We know what the British Empire and all of the other empires, French, Spanish, Dutch, German, Belgium. We know what these empires did to distort and destroy the overwhelming yearning, longing for freedom that all peoples around the world feel. And so we then tell these stories in fiction that we have to listen to. So we're really glad to be able to bring Nye as a 4-year-old to this storied landscape where when he dreams at night, he will feel in touch with these stories of landscapes in a non-controversy to full fruition here in these United States and around the world, particularly the Middle East, where he has such strong heritage. So I'm really glad that he has this opportunity, that we can contextualize these visits. And I know that when we get to Marrakesh, he's going to look at those landscapes in the Mellah, the old Jewish market, the spice market, in the old Islamic regions, and in the old Coptic and other Christian areas. He's going to see architecture that reminds him of Disney World's, Hollywood Studios, Star Wars area. And here we're seeing reminders from the actual places in the Middle East. He's going to, of course, say, hey, that looks just like Disney World. But regardless, that resonance is going to have him question the brutalist, modernist architecture that, as we saw this summer in Vienna, Austria, was being vigorously fought against by people like Hundertwasser. And when you go to the Hundertwasser village, when you go to the Hundertwasser apartments in Vienna, when you see all the great Hundertwasser architecture, you see how he was fighting very vigorously against architectural styles that he felt enslaved us, that brutalized us, that diminished us and demeaned us. My whole life going to theme parks, I felt liberated by the architectures that the Disney Imagineers brought to a wider public at a time when 1950s and 60s and 70s America was being brutalized by brutalist architecture that was a cheap descendant of the Bauhaus movement or of Le Corbusier and his utilitarian principles, the functional principles of architecture. I have admiration as an urban planner for the intent of those who tried to get away from too much investment in mere style without function, and wanted form rather than wanted function rather than form. There was an intent that those great architects and thinkers had that then got bastardized and distorted for the sake of the almighty dollar as an end rather than a means to an end. The Disney parks pushed back against that and said, let's bring form and functionality into coherence using an engineering principle that was imagined. So it was Imagineering. It would embrace science and science fiction and fantasy and adventure. And so we see the fruits of that. But as I said, traveling through the Middle East, or for example, being in Turkey, in Cappadocia, how much the dwellings in Cappadocia resemble this, or how much this resembles Cappadocia, how much this and all of Star Wars resembles the Matmata sunken dwellings that I stayed in when I was a student in Tunisia. I went down and then they said, okay, this is one of the hotels or one of the homes where they filmed the Tatooine segments where Luke Skywalker lives in the desert. So they just went to Tunisia and found architecture that looked appropriate for the script, but those were real places. They're not imagined. They are real. These are architectural styles that were developed to defeat the heat, the overly hot climate, and make it comfortable to live and possible to adapt. So if we go back into our history, we see that a lot of these what are now considered fantastical fantasy styles were very functional. Form followed function when you didn't have access to cheap oil or cheap coal or cheap lumber. So wherever the empire has artificially made the cost of fuel, the cost of fertilizer, the cost of building material artificially low through subsidy, through intimidation, violence, tariffs, overproduction, then of course you would blunder. Wherever they didn't subsidize this, you would deliberately make beautiful architecture that was functional. Wherever it's subsidized or forced upon us, then you blunder into really inefficient, dumb buildings and a dumb built environment. the irony is there are people now who say that the cubes and rectangles of brutalist architecture are more environmentally efficient because they lack all of the frills, and they're not being honest in their assessment of how these blocks actually save energy, save heat, are insulated. Because if that were the case, you would do what our Muskogee friends are doing in their eco-village in Alabama. You would build with rammed earth, you'd build with cob, you'd build with straw bale, you'd build with adobe, with mud daub. You do biomimicry, and you would try to build in such a way that you follow the best principles of functional form that we see in social insects and termites and bees and ants and in naked mole rats and in so many organisms on the earth that have confronted difficult environments and found solutions over long evolutionary time. So that's what we're thinking through as we wait in line for the rise of the resistance. And I'm going to sign off now and come back because we have a long wait in line. We have a long wait until we actually get on the ride. And if I still have battery left, then I'll take you through the ride. And we'll see Nai's 4-year-old reaction to it. Thanks for listening.